Martin Scorsese was born on November 17, 1942, in Queens, New York, but his real home was just a few miles south, tucked deep in the dense, gritty streets of Manhattan's Little Italy. A neighborhood alive with flavor, tradition, and danger. As a child, Marty was sickly. He had severe asthma. That meant no baseball, no roughhousing, no running in the streets like the other kids. Instead, he watched, observed, soaked in the world from behind windows and in the dark of movie theaters. His parents, Charles and Catherine, were working-class Sicilian Americans. He watched them struggle, watched the tight-knit community carry the weight of survival and pride. Every gesture, every story, every burst of violence or tenderness, it all sank deep into his bones. And then came film. Cinema wasn't just entertainment for Marty. It was revelation. A sanctuary. His imagination caught fire. He saw the world not just as it was, but how it could be seen, through light, shadow, and frame. From a young age, he was fascinated by the duality of human nature, the pious and the criminal, the sacred and the profane. And in Little Italy, that duality was on every corner. He wasn't just a boy growing up. He was a future filmmaker, being shaped by the streets, the saints, and the sinners of New York. Long before the name to Scorsese lit up any marquee, it was whispered in seminaries. As a teenager, Martin seriously considered becoming a Catholic priest. It made sense. His world was deeply religious. The rituals, the rules, the weight of guilt, it was all familiar, even comforting. But something tugged at him from deeper within. He would go on to enroll in seminary school, but the calling faded. What didn't fade was his obsession with storytelling. He enrolled at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. It was a move that would change not only his life, but the landscape of cinema itself. There, he studied under influential professors and brushed shoulders with students who, like him, wanted to challenge the rules of film. While others dreamed of Hollywood, Scorsese dreamed of grit, truth, and confrontation. At NYU, he directed his early shorts, raw, unapologetic glimpses into life on the edge. And for the first time, his voice, unique, daring, urgent, began to emerge. But it wasn't just talent that set him apart. It was intensity, passion, a willingness to bleed onto celluloid. Scorsese would leave the seminary, but he never left behind the weight of faith. His movies would become his confessionals. His characters, his lost souls. And cinema? His church. The 1970s were a revolution in American cinema, and at the center of the storm stood Martin Scorsese. His breakout film, Mean Streets, dropped like a firebomb in 1973. Gritty. Loud. Visceral. It wasn't just about gangsters, it was about moral chaos. About men who pray in one moment and stab in the next. The film introduced the world to a new kind of realism. And more importantly, it introduced us to Robert De Niro. Their collaboration would become one of the most legendary partnerships in film history. Then came Taxi Driver. A descent into madness. A portrait of isolation. Of a man unraveling in the neon-soaked hellscape of post-Vietnam America. It was dark. Disturbing. Revolutionary. You talking to me? It wasn't just a line. It was a cultural eruption. Scorsese had found his rhythm, kinetic editing, haunting scores, and a camera that didn't observe passively, but stalked, surged, and pierced. Through Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Casino, he took us into the underworld. But he never glamorized it. Instead, he stripped it bare. He showed us the cost, the cruelty, the inner rot. And yet, within all the bloodshed, there was artistry. Every bullet, every betrayal, every whispered threat, it all served something deeper. Scorsese didn't just portray violence. He used it to ask questions about power, identity, and the fragility of the human soul. Time haunts Martin Scorsese. From the ticking clock of youth lost to asthma, to the aging faces of gangsters clinging to relevance, time is ever present in his work. In The Last Temptation of Christ, he wrestled with eternity. In The Aviator, he examined obsession and decay. In The Irishman, he gave us a slow, cold meditation on aging, betrayal, and regret. Unlike most directors, Scorsese doesn't just use time, he bends it, stretches it, slows it down, and lets it linger like smoke in a dying barroom. He understands that time reveals character. That wounds fester. That silence, over time, speaks louder than violence. He shows us people at their peak, and then drags us through their downfall. Not for spectacle, but for truth. To Scorsese, time is not an enemy. It's a lens. And through it, we don't just watch his characters live. We watch them fade. By the 21st century, Martin Scorsese was more than a director. He was a monument. But even as accolades piled high, from Oscars to Lifetime Achievement Awards, he never stopped creating. Never softened. Never diluted his voice. He worked with a new generation, Leonardo DiCaprio becoming his muse in films like The Departed, Shutter Island, and The Wolf of Wall Street. He ventured into new genres, historical epics, psychological thrillers, even children's films like Hugo. And yet, through it all, his core remained. Scorsese became an advocate for cinema itself, founding the Film Foundation to restore lost and damaged films. He fought for artistry in an age of algorithms. For storytelling in an era of streaming content. He challenged the industry, famously criticizing superhero films, not out of spite, but out of a fierce love for the craft. To him, cinema was sacred. Dangerous. Transformative. It wasn't meant to be consumed. It was meant to be felt. And that is his legacy. Not just in the frames of his films, but in the hearts of those who watched them and saw themselves. He was a boy who couldn't run. A student who almost wore a collar. A man who turned pain into poetry and crime into confession. He didn't just tell stories. He left a mark that bleeds through time.